And here we are live a little bit earlier than we advertised, but I know that most people watch these on replay. But apologies to anyone who is waiting to tune in right at 7 o'clock. But as the days get a little bit darker, I want to kind of get going on a little bit sooner because I like bedtime. So Hannah Phillips is joining me today a little bit earlier than we advertised, so apologies, but I'm really, really grateful today. Hannah, who is a mother, an author, a survivor, a runner, and just an all-around inspirational person who's going to come along for the next 45 minutes and tell us a bit about their journey and how you got to where you are, Hannah. But I know you're actually in London right now.
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're not? Oh, okay.
I had it desperately wrong this next week, unfortunately. So.
Okay, well, we can talk about your visit to London, but I was introduced to you by an old hockey pal named Jeff Smith, who I never played against Jeff. I think he retired just at a time when I was playing, but I also started covering the sport on TV. But I always knew Jeff from his days in Cardiff, and he was a legend in British ice hockey. But I also know his journey from a double hip replacement. No, actually, before that, running a very successful agency to double hip replacement to climbing Mount Everest, and then starting bigmoose charity in relation to the after one of his friends passed away in the hockey community. And bigmoose is a charity now that is set up in Cardiff, and I think it's had different kind of guises. It was set up as a coffee shop. I think maybe even something before that, but then a coffee shop for people to be able to drop in and to help people, also the homeless. But it's also through the pandemic, as you mentioned, and I'm sure you'll talk about a little bit more, has changed a lot now, and really is focusing a lot on mental health and suicide prevention. And unbelievable thing. I can't thank Jeff enough for everything he does and introducing me to you. And I'll shut up now. Yeah. And I'll let you introduce yourself to the community. So go ahead.
I think you've covered quite a bit. So I'm Hannah Phillips. I am firstly and foremostly a mother of 3 because we have no sense of contraception in this house. I won't go into a we yet. My day job, I work for, when I'm not on maternity leave, which happens a lot these days, I work for Welsh Athletics. So I work for the social running provision, which is called Run Wales. So I look after all the non-club runners in Wales. So your social running groups and the people that just want to go for a little plod like me. I'm an ambassador for bigmoose at the moment, which is probably my second most important role to Mam. Just banging that drum at the moment. We're in the process of doing Project 1 Million this year. So Jeff is trying to raise 1,000, that'd been easy, £1 million by the end of the year for bigmoose. So that's what's happening at the moment.
Yeah, and I know we did think that you were going to be in London because you're completing a course, right?
Yeah,
and that's going to be. So what's the course that you're on?
So I'm in the middle of the first part of a diploma to become a psychotherapist. So I'll just go back a little bit because I've missed out big chunks there. So just to make it super clear. So I work for Welsh Athletics, and that's how I met Jeff and Chloe. So Chloe is Jeff's daughter, and they are the A team when it comes to bigmoose. Bigmoose was set up initially to help homeless people. They realised they were doing lots of voluntary work in Cardiff and realised that they were just putting a plaster over it, not actually salting the wound. So they decided they wanted to set up a cafe that would sort of integrate homeless people back into the workplace, and just the whole ethos is leaving the world better than they found it. Now, they came up on my radar because they were having these massive teams run in for them at Cardiff Half Marathon. So Cardiff Half Marathon, being a social running participation officer, is a big calendar day for me. And I was like, well, were all these people running in spots? You know, there's like hundreds of them. And I got introduced to Jeff that way. So I started going to the cafe to sort of like pick Jeff's brains on how they had this amazing community of runners and things like that. And that's how we became probably more friends than sort of work associates.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of months ago, well, it is just over a year ago now in the summer, I visited the cafe on another work thing, and I had been really poorly. I've suffered with my mental health. We now established probably since I was born. And I had been really, really poorly to the point where there was no light at my tunnel. And we've got a caravan down in West Wales that we spend the weekends at. And I had asked Scott, who was my husband. I tell people Scott and Graham. Graham is my therapist and Scott is my husband. This is important because people are getting them mixed up now. So I had said to Scott, look, you're gonna have to look after these girls. And he was like, why? And I was like, I need to go home. And he was like, I don't understand. And I was like, just promise me you'll look after the girls. And like, I was going home to turn the lights off. I was done. I had no more fight in me, no more give. I was at the end of the road. Luckily, Scott saw sense and bought us some time, and didn't let me go home, thank goodness, because I wouldn't be here today otherwise. And we put a bit of a basic plan in place. I was treading water. I was still going to work. I was still being mum. I was still in the back of my head. I was like, you've only got a couple of more days to go through till you're on your own and you can sort this out. And that was what my thinking was at the time. And then I called into the cafe on another work meeting, and Jeff and Chloe, we ended up talking a little bit longer, as you do at these work meetings when you become friends with someone. And I made a really flippant comment. I was like, I had said to Scott, like, I wish we were a bit more like America, because America seemed to have therapists, nail technicians. It's like the standard thing. Everybody seems to be in therapy over there, like from my very limited knowledge of the country at the moment. And Jeff was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm absolutely fine, because we do that. And when we're really poorly, we're like, no, everything is fine. Everything is fine. And he was like, we've actually got this provision at the moment, which might interest you. And I was like, ooh. And he said, we're actually giving out blocks of therapy to people who might need it in the form of like immediate intervention. And again, I was like, no, use it on people who need it, even though I was at the lowest of low. And he said, listen, do me a favor, because he's very intuitive, Jeff is. He was like, look, do me a favor, why don't you try it, and then even if it's not for you, you can let me know how it is and how it works, and it'll be good for me to get some feedback. And I was like, okay, thank you. And then within a day, Graham, the therapist, had given me a call. He rang me, and I had completely broke down on the phone. I didn't realize just how much help I was looking for without actually actively looking for it. And Graham said a couple of things, and the one thing that really stands out, he was like, I can help you, we can, as long as you put the work in you, I can help you. And I had 4 sessions of this amazing therapy, and that is the whole reason that my girls have got a mum today. I stand by that. If I hadn't had that therapy, I wouldn't be here today. And he basically has given me such a different outlook on it was like a switch was flipped. And I say to Jeff all the time, I hate a cliche, absolutely hate a cliche, but it is like a switch has been flipped, and I'm seeing things a lot more clearly. And I've still got to work at being well every single day, every day, every hour of every day. I've got to work at being well, but it's not the graph that it used to be. Which brings me nicely on to, so the therapy I had was called Human Givens, and this is the therapy that they're using at bigmoose. So this immediate intervention that they're providing for anyone who needs it, which is phenomenal. I'm actually going to train now in that field to become a therapist. So it's come full circle, really. It's quite a nice story.
It's beautiful. I couldn't help but get emotional as you're telling your story, because and the bit when you said about your daughters not having a mother, and them having a mother today, and I couldn't help. Hannah, I mean, I've known some mums who've taken their lives over the last couple of years, and who've lost the battle, particularly in the recovery community with addictions and alcoholism, and it's just absolutely heartbreaking. And like I know for me on my personal journey, alcohol and alcoholism took me to the point where, I wasn't suicidal. I wasn't thinking I want to end it. I was thinking I don't care.
Yeah.
Having doctors pronounce me, on death's door with acute pancreatitis and liver failure, kidney failure, that all my filters were plugged. And the thing that was taking me out was malnutrition and dehydration, because my all my diet was straight vodka and peanut M&Ms, because I hated the taste of vodka, and I was my mind thought I could get the 5 food groups in a peanut M&M, and it just killed the taste of the vodka. So I was slowly dying, and every night, and I was a 24-hour a day drinker, so I would drink until I passed out, and then at 2 and 4 or whatever, however, a couple of hours, I would wake up and I would have a bottle of vodka by my bed, and I would take a swig, and I just remember like I was thinking it was a warm feeling, but it was actually my esophagus burning. But it gave me that bit of comfort to again fall asleep again, but thinking to myself, I don't actually care if I wake up, and I didn't have anyone around me to keep me accountable. Like I didn't have kids, I didn't have a partner. I was just dying alone in a flat in Toronto. And I think around this issue, everyone, there's like in Canada and over here in the UK, we talk about it's good to talk, it's okay to be not okay. Um, but I was always taught never to talk and never to let anybody know anything about my problems. So I think the huge issue that we have is that people who are at that place where you so said about going home, which again, it really like, going home meaning ready to die, to take your own life. Um, Not a lot of people have those words in them, those words
No.
that saved my life eventually, which were helped me. And I think this is why this journey to where people get to where they no longer feel that they want to be here. It's up to people to watch for that,
Yeah.
and I always say it's the people who say I'm okay.
Yeah.
When we ask, are you okay? And you say okay. And now we're so lucky that you had someone like Jeff to who could smell your BS, right?
Yeah.
Um, Not a lot of people have those thoughts. So I think it's so hard now. We're in this world where, I mean, even the statistics that I saw today, which was suicide rates went up 4%. I think we're starting to get the numbers now out of the pandemic that suicide rates have gone up 4%. Already a huge
Yeah.
uh, number where people are passing away, and so geez, I'm so grateful that your children have a mom
Yeah. Me
and that
too.
you're here, and yeah, and that you're here to tell your story, because there are people that are going to hear it and resonate, and I think what I would like to know from you is a little bit more of your journey. How, when you said now that Graham has been able to help you get back to childhood
Yeah.
healing, which I think a lot of people too, they think that, oh, my childhood was great, or my childhood was bad. I had violence, I had abuse, um, but what I've known now is that most people need some kind of healing.
Yeah.
So how were you kind of regressed to the point where you felt like going home to where did that journey start? For you, and where did the healing need to start rather than just the thing of like, I'm not going to kill myself today?
So I'm from my mum has bipolar. I don't know whether they still call it bipolar. They changed the names, but my mum suffers terribly with her mental health. So she was sectioned for the first time when I was around about 4 or 5.
Mm.
And I don't remember much about it. I remember lots of little things that add up to probably things. I didn't have a bad childhood, and I think this is always really important to mention.
Mm.
I'm always cautious about talking about my mum as well, because that's her story. But there was lots of little bits that when you piece together. So I didn't sleep as a child at all, like to the point where I was dragged back and forth clinics, and back in the day where I think now I probably would have been diagnosed with ADHD, if I'm totally honest, just because
Mm.
of the But what they massively missed was the OCD. So I didn't sleep because it was easier not to sleep than to do all the routines to go to sleep. And not one person picked up on this until I was in my mid-20s. So, which is, you know, baffles me that no one worked out like that, because I remember the one doctor had said to my mum, and it was like a running joke, that the only thing we could try now is possibly a mallet, you know, to get her to sleep. Because I didn't, until I was 15, I did not sleep. And there were so many compulsions that I'd have to do so that nobody would go to hospital, or no, you know, obviously it must be my mum. My mum and dad were older having me, which always was, it was always made, like, my mum was 38, which is nothing now. I mean, I'm 37 and I've just had another one. So it's, you know, it's completely different now. But when I was a little girl, they were always the older parents, which was, again, baffles me now. But my mum always made quite a big deal out of it. And I think I was really paranoid that, because my mum was 26 for years. She told me she was 26 for years and years and years. And then when she told me her actual age, I think that probably did more damage than good. So when I found out her age, I was like ridiculously paranoid that they were going to die. Like, you know, to the point where and apparently now I've learned that it's quite common for children to panic about their parents dying, but I never let it go. I didn't let it go at all. So I was diagnosed with the OCD in my mid to late 20s, which was another revelation. Like, I didn't know it was OCD. I just thought I had little quirks, you know, like I don't eat or drink anything red. And I just thought that was something amusing that happened to certain people. Like, I can't wear a pair of socks. And again, I just thought everybody had these little, you know, nobody, you hear it all the time. No kids sleep, do they? So it was just, so yeah, there was a lot of OCD going on. And I started drinking. I was not a 24-hour drinker, but I have got massive, massive issues with alcohol. Whereas I would just drink wine constantly if I could, and I would now. If, you know, if I didn't know how good it feels to feel like this, I would still be drinking a lot of wine. And this is the interesting thing about my story, was that I had already given up alcohol about 3 months before I was going home. And that was another massive factor. I was like, I don't know what else I can do. You know, I take Prozac, I've given up alcohol, I go for runs, I try and go to bed, you know, I look after myself, and I still feel like there's no give. And I think that's another really important thing, like the high functioning depression that people get. You know, no one person would have known how poorly I was. And I think even today, I don't think Scott realizes how bad it was. And I you know, we never speak about that day. And I genuinely, I don't know whether he repressed it or I don't speak about it either, to be honest with Scott, because it must have been horrific for him. It must have been awful to put him through that. And, you know, the implications of me going home would have been destroyed, you know, so destructive for everybody. So I still don't think, and that's the really frightening thing about it. Like, you know, I was bumbling along, no one knew, and I'm really open, you know, I'm a very open person, but there is no way I would have said to someone, I feel like I want to die now. So
well, I know that the people who do use alcohol the way that you know that you describe, and the way I did, I know we're extremely good at faking being okay. You know, even after huge benders in my early days, if I had a shower and a shave and put a suit on, I mean, nobody would know the pain and the fear of the man inside the suit. And it's very interesting that you say too that you had given up alcohol 3 months before you were at one of your low points, and what what I point out for in my journey of alcohol use is that alcohol was the solution. You know, alcohol took away that crippling fear. It helped me fit in. It just enabled me to breathe. And when you take that away, and I think this was the problem, is I could when I was trying, you know, in a 12-step program, the most I could get was 30 days. And it was because I was going 30 days without a solution in my life. 30 days of living in fear, of living in judgment, of living in self-pity, of living in self-will. And those were the worst times, you know, not having that. And I think that is the thing, is that we think that alcohol is the problem when actually alcohol isn't the problem, it's the solution. And the solution stops working for us because our bodies start to break down and we end up like where I did, was in jail. And you know, and even then that's not enough to, so even the consequences won't stop me from drinking. I needed an alternative, you know. And I'm you know, it's kind of, we're jumping from that moment of wanting to go home and alcohol use to a solution now. And I think it's probably a good jump, is that you've got a solution now in your life where, and I would like to know more about the, you know, the running aspect of things. And you know, that's something that's been consistent in your life, the running? Is it something that you've always wanted to do and you've always done?
No, funny story. So I've basically made a career out of, we were in Cardiff on a night out about 13, 14 years ago now, and I mistook my reflection for that of someone else's. That of someone who was much larger than me. I said to Scott, that fat girl. Now I don't say fat anymore because I've got daughters and I realise how damaging that is. But I was like, that fat girl's got my top on. And Scott was a bit like, I was like, oh my God, she got the same colour jeans on as me as well. Because I had green jeans on, and green jeans have never been a thing, you know, so it was rare. And by the time I realised it was me, I was very distraught. So I was trying to work out what I could do to still live the lifestyle we had, but lose some weight. I'm really fussy eater. Like I said, I don't eat or drink anything red, and you know, I'm not the healthiest food choices. And I was still a very big drinker then, with no children. You know, very big social drinker then. I wasn't drinking as frequently. Well, I say that's a lie. I was drinking all the time. And it's part of I do a bit of stand-up comedy, and it's part of my routine now, where I was like, oh, I've seen people that drink in the pub, but they go for a run the day before. So like, that's what I'm going to do. So I was like, I'm going to go running because I can still drink on the weekends then, basically. And I set out a couple of days later to run the entirety of Merthyr Tydfil, but I did it in Scots Balaclava. Now, I don't know whether anybody's gone for a run in the Balaclava before, but it's not the best thing to do, especially in Merthyr Tydfil, where crime rates are quite high, because the police picked me up. And the police were like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm running. And they were like, why are you in a balaclava? And I was like, I was in a balaclava because I was so mortified about my size, and that like I'd never done PE. You know, it was the running joke that I wasn't sporty. And so I got back that night and I was like hyperventilating on the floor with a really like bad rash on my face from the balaclava, and mortified that, you know, I nearly got arrested. And after a while then I was getting more confident about going perhaps in the light, because I was going in the dark. And then I started telling people like, oh, I started running and all this, and people would drop into the floor in amazement and things. So after a while I started to really feel the bend. Like I always say I started running for weight loss, and I maintained running for very different reasons. So once it started to click, once I started to realize that, oh, actually after I run I feel a bit better, life is a bit better, I like these stats, I like, you know, it fitted into my life really well. And then when I started reflecting on that night I had gone out on my own in the balaclava, and I was thinking, I never want any woman to ever feel like that. I don't want any woman to ever feel like she hasn't got a space in sport, specifically social running, because anyone can do it. It's accessible. It's reasonably cheap, as long as you don't get sold into the gimmicks and the, you know, the nonsense. And I never wanted anyone to, and especially I'm even more passionate about it now with daughters, because I never ever want them to feel like they don't fit in to something that they want to do. So I made it like my proper mission to carve out this safe space. And I was blogging about it. And then we tried for our eldest little girl, and we had loads of fertility problems. I just couldn't stay pregnant, and we went through a horrific time. And then I ended up having her, and she was like our little miracle, and we were over the moon. And then when she was 1, I got pregnant again. And I had a really nasty miscarriage this time, and I was hospitalised because my cervix had gone into shock. And I was in Prince Charles Hospital in Merthyr that night thinking, you can't keep doing this, you can't keep getting pregnant and losing babies, you know, you've had what you wanted, you've got this perfect little girl there, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'll run a marathon, because if I'm running a marathon, A, we'll be too tired to have sex, and B, I'll be too busy, you know, training for a marathon to ever get pregnant. So that night when I was in the hospital, I applied for a London marathon place with a charity called Bliss. And then a couple of days later, they accepted my application. They were like, we'd love you to run for us. And I was like, okay, how the hell am I going to raise £2,500? So I was like, I know, I'll write a book. And then all my friends and family can write the book, and they'll think it's that great that they'll sponsor me. So in my head, like my mums and my aunties, and you know, would buy the book, and then they'd go, use 20 quid for the pot, sort of thing. Little did I know that book went absolutely mental. It went straight to the bestseller, Amazon bestseller list. I managed to get an agent through it, and it really shaped the next few years for me. It was phenomenal. And that's how I got my job with Welsh Athletics, really, because they were like, who's this girl who's just screaming about running being okay for everybody to do? So that's how that happened.
Whew.
I know.
Yeah, Jesus. We're going to need more than 45 minutes.
I told the boy this story on the school run the other day. I was telling him all about this. As I was leaving him, I was like, what have we got planned for the rest of the day? And he went, I'm going to have to go and have a lie down now, Hannah. So yeah, I know you feel like.
There's a lot into that. And the books, the intention was to enable people to know about safe spaces for running. But you wanted just to raise a little bit of money, and now it's Amazon bestseller. It was amazing. I'm so inspired by that. How much, like, what was the give us the nuts and bolts of the book. How the beginning, middle, and end.
So the beginning is the run in the balaclava. Mm-hmm. The middle is just the training. So each chapter is like mile 1, mile 2 to mile 13.1, mile 26.2 then. So yeah, it's just from the start to the marathon. So,
unbelievable. Yeah. Wow. I'm running's never been a thing for me, but I do know of a lot of people especially in the recovery community, who started off with like running 5 kilometers and then half marathons and then full marathons. And I think for them, I was asking them about endorphins and the dopamine and the stuff that you get from exercising. But I think that one of the big things that they talk about was the community.
Yeah.
They just felt really connected to a bunch of people who ultimately would get up, like they'd be running, it's dark outside and it's raining, and it's so much easier to sit on the couch and watch Netflix. But it was like this thing of like, I want to meet my friends and go through this experience together, rather than just, sitting in comfort where we can be lethargic and lazy. And but it was really the sense of community. Did you find that? Like, did you find real community in running?
Yeah, the community is a very special community. And especially like the clubs now, especially in Wales, we've worked really hard. I think we've worked really hard anyway, but I'm biased, to make clubs inclusive, and they make sure they social running arm is as powerful as their club running arm, and I use arms instead of legs because it's just it's too many puns. And yeah, the community is, you know, like you, and like the big thing for me with running now, especially with people, is that you get in that space, you get in that sort of social interaction that us humans really need, that perhaps people like me and you might have got from the pub, you know. It took me a long time. So like I did my first event a couple of months ago now, where I run 10k, and I ran in with my friend, and at the end I was like, I'm a bit nervous because I've never not got shit faced after a run, you know, after an event. And we went for some food, and then we went to the beach because it was down in Tenby, and I probably had the best day ever. But if you had told me that a couple of, you know, years ago, I would have gone absolutely ridiculous. No, you need to go and get leathered after, obviously. So
Yeah.
The community, and there's like lots of like memes and stuff that will say nobody roots for you more than a stranger in the running that you've met on the internet in the running forum sort of thing. So it's really special.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful. Yeah, it's something special about like I say, people getting out of their comfort zone to actually, and I think that with the running is that there's a bit of physical pain in it, and I think that's the thing. Like you're going like, it's a little bit different when you're not when I suppose when clubs are meeting over things where there's no physical exertion and that little bit of discomfort. And I think for me, what it is that I've looked a lot at sport, like you have, and with running, with all sports, there's that element of the word competition.
Yeah.
And I think that word is so, I think it's not a good word to compete. Everyone thinks you need to compete and you need to win and you need to be the best and you need to run the fastest. When really, I've done a little bit of digging into human evolution, and there was a neurologist in the 60s, and I don't want to get his name wrong, so I'm not going to say it, but I listened to him on the Andrew Huberman podcast. Andrew Huberman talks about him, and Andrew Huberman's a very famous neurologist who studies the brain, and he was saying that this guy was saying when the brain is happy, you hooked up a bunch of electrodes when you could do that in the 60s. I don't think you can really do it now. To the brain of somebody, and stimulated them with pictures of like puppies and kittens, food, like sex, and would see where the brain was at its happiest, and then it would give the person a puzzle, and the brain would light up because the brain was being challenged.
Yeah.
And the conclusion is that we are where we are through humanity because we've challenged ourselves as a human race to survive. You know, we've challenged ourselves to create fire, to kill the wildebeest with a spear, to cook it, to stay on dry ground and build huts and get the fruit up the tree. We've been challenged to survive. And now that the idea of competition has kind of overtaken the idea of challenge. And I think the great thing about a community like running is we challenge, or people challenge each other just to show up.
Yeah.
And it's not someone to win. It's let's do our personal best. Let's get there together. And that to me, I think is the beauty of sport, is if we can start changing slightly the lens in which we look at sport from one of competition to one of challenge, I think people will excel and just enjoy it more. And I'm noticing that too. Like sport is meant to be enjoyed, and just it's a community of people enjoying sports. So I really admire the running community, even though I'm not really good at it. My body's not really designed to run. I've got bad hips and a bad back. So, but I will be looking at I am looking more like I'm getting back into ice hockey, which I think is beautiful. And I'm getting into coaching and getting out back on the ice with people. And that's given me this feeling that I haven't had in years, this feeling of connection with sport again. So, okay. So if anybody's out there listening, just join a running club. If you're feeling a little bit of isolated, a little bit of social anxiety, or read Hannah's book too. Hannah, what's the name of the book?
No Run Intended.
No Run Intended.
I don't think you can't get it at the moment though. It's been taken off to be edited because it was quite badly edited. So
Well, when it's ready, we're going to put the link in the Facebook feed so somebody can get it. But for me, I'm just going to kind of tell you a little bit about where I am in my journey, and maybe you can reflect. Is that all of the pain, the suffering, jail, detoxes, hospitals, loneliness, isolation, dying, rooms that look like something out of Train Spotting, all of these really, really dark times in my lives are they didn't make me, they were part of my experience. But what they've done today is they've enabled me to be able to tell of these experiences to people where they can kind of get some connection with me, so that my experiences, my dark moments are turning into other people's, my vulnerability is turning into people's ability to trust me, so that ultimately I might be able to help them and guide them into some kind of direction where they can get some healing happening in their lives. So at 50, almost 52 years old, if you were to say, Nick, what's the meaning of life? I would sit there and if you were to ask me when I was 28, I would say it was to be a millionaire, to have a pretty wife, to have some kids and a nice car and, all that stuff. And now you'd ask me what's the meaning of life, and I'd say it's simple. We're here to help each other. Humanity is here to help. And now your experience of you going through this course, do you find that too? Do you find that the materialistic side of life, the wants rather than the needs, kind of go away, and you're more designed to use those times in your lives where you can ultimately help somebody?
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of like public speaking for bigmoose at the moment, and the big quote I start and finish with is the one where I forget the guy's name every time, when he says when he was a kid and he was frightened of things he'd see on the news, his mum told him to look for the helpers. And that's my whole thing now, look for the helpers, because they're there. And then the more that has evolved, as I've like learned, especially the last year has been phenomenal for me as a person. Like the growth and the difference in me from this time last year is unbelievable. I'm still finding it hard to articulate, but now I want to be a helper. I want to be the type of person that someone, even a stranger could probably see in me, that that girl will help.
Yeah. So, do you want to hear how I end my talks?
Yeah, always.
Okay. So I end my talks by, I say, have you ever seen some Egyptian hieroglyphs? The way the Egyptians used to write. Well, in Egyptian hieroglyphs, all the gods, and this is something I saw in a documentary and I kind of twisted a little bit, but all of the gods are depicted with left hands. And they say that is because gods can only give. Gods can only bestow. So the left hand is for bestowing. But me, as a human being on this planet, I've got a left and a right hand. So the right hand was meant for receiving. So this is what I do is I say, you think about someone you can help. So I get you to hold out your left hand. And so you can hold out your left hand if you want. And you think about someone that you can give your experience, give your moments of darkness, give your guidance and your suggestions and your protocols for healing. But then we need to be able to receive help. So you hold out your right hand and you hold it like this, other way. Now you just think about being able to say to Graham and Scott, help me. And then what you've got there is, if you close your hands, right, we're connected. We're connected by our ability to not only give help, but receive, because we're not gods. We are human with our human frailties, with our human experiences that need to heal too. And I think it's in that connectedness, that love is found. And I'll tell you what, love conquers fear all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what humanity is all about. So that's how I end my little chat.
I like it.
There you go. Please, if you ever want to take it, you use it.
I might.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's I think that's really important, especially with bigmoose at the moment, that, I'm so grateful I'm here. I'm even more grateful that I can give back. you know, because they're there. And I think that, you know, I have to mention this before I go, that like if anybody is struggling or knows someone who's struggling, they just need to get in touch with Big Moose and they'll be able to access some therapy immediately. So
yeah, I think it maybe just a little bit explain, like they have 24/7 availability for therapists, counselors, like they're all
yeah.
ready.
Yeah, so the referral process is that you would give Chloe an email or you contact them through the channels, you know, any social media channels, or I'll give you Chloe's email address and you can pop it in the group just in case.
Yeah.
And then you would email Chloe and Chloe will ask you a couple of questions and then she'll match you with a therapist. So like, for instance, there was a lady came through a couple of weeks ago. Like I know nothing about this lady, only that she was a teacher and she was at, you know, the lowest point, but couldn't access anything because she couldn't take the time off work. And then during the holidays, she was with her kids. So what they did is they matched her with a human givens therapist that's in Australia. So her therapist would log on at morning over there and she would speak to this therapist. I think it was like 9-10 o'clock in the night, you know, so it's just this help there. And what I'm learning now through the diploma is human givens is it sort of like collects lots of bits of psychotherapy and has come up with this concept. And it's mind-blowing. I think everybody should do a course like this. But because of what and how they do things, their success rate is much lower, much quicker. Sorry, not lower, much higher, but much quicker.
Much higher, yeah.
So they basically, within 4 sessions, they can say that you would definitely be feeling better, if not, you know, free to go out then without your therapist sort of holding your hand. So it's really clever.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I think so anybody where if any part of this story has resonated with anybody, if it's brought anything up, the chat's always open for you to get in touch with me, but also we will put in the details for Big Moose so that anybody can contact them. But also, you know, I think that I think you pointed out, if you know of anybody, you know, so that's the thing, is like when you start to like, and this is what I always tell my guys, is that when you ask people how they're doing, always ask them, like, really, how are you doing? And you might have to ask them a couple of times. And I always have a list of the guys who are like, Nick, my life is great. I've just got a new girlfriend. I'm moving into a new place. Like, everything's great. I always kind of put them at the top of the list.
Yeah.
And I double check on them every few days. And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, oh, do you know what? Things are getting a bit sticky. Yeah. And then I'll be able to try to offer them support. So I think, like we say about the giving and the taking, we have to be able to ask for help, but we have to be able to find, you know, be proactive in looking for people who might be wanting to go home.
I make a real big point since this. I make a really big point, and like once every couple of weeks, I'll go on to my Instagram stories and go, "How are you? How are you really? I'm not interested in you. Oh, everything's great. How are you?" And I think I think it was something like 9 referrals in from my Instagram stories of people who have gone, I'm really struggling. And, you know, I don't have the answers at the moment, but what I do have is the signposting abilities. So, and, you know, speaking from someone, again, like I said, I'm so open. Not one person knew what was going on, you know, so.
So what's next? You're writing another book?
Yeah, I'm writing one on sobriety at the moment, but I'm doing this diploma, which is quite heavy with 3 children. But I'm waiting. There's randomly a production company. I did a podcast. Well, no, I didn't do a podcast, actually. I did a talk at a running festival a couple of months ago. And the guy who created it basically did a podcast on it. And a production company got in contact. And I think I'm being filmed tomorrow now because they're going to put a pitch out about random girls running in balaclavas, I think. So I'm hoping that's next as well. I might be on a TV near you.
That'll be amazing. I will definitely tune in, and I want to stay in touch with you because I think I maybe mentioned in our first phone call, I now am a stepdad to 3 boys, and the challenges are unreal, but they're beautiful. So maybe one day we'll talk about parenthood together too. And
Yeah.
yeah.
You can come and see my stand-up routine, because that's all on being a parent of 3. It's basically so I
What
can go
did,
out the house on a Friday night. I have to go and get gigs so
so
that I can get
you're doing
freedom.
comedy as well. Geez,
Yeah,
Hannah,
yeah.
come on. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? When you're in London, if you get time, look me up and we'll go for a coffee. It'd be great to meet you in person. I can't thank you enough. Please pass my best on to Jeff for introducing
Well,
us, and
yeah.
to Chloe, both Chloe and Jeff, and all the Big Moose team for all the beautiful work they're doing. It's not just Cardiff based, it's worldwide based. If you need help, if you know somebody who needs help, then please reach out to these folks and they will be able to assist you. So bless you, Hannah. Again, thank you so much for joining
Oh,
me
thanks for
this
having
time of
me.
night. Really, really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody at the Elephant and Castle community. Don't forget, you can join me on Thursday for more tough through tender conversations, and then next week for another chat with I don't know who yet. So thanks everybody for joining me, and Hannah, thank you ever so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.